On This Week in Enterprise Tech, your car is trying to kill you, Microsoft's good and bad earnings, and I've got 45 problems, but a drive ain't one. Twyat on the set.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Enterprise Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Twyat, This Week in Enterprise Tech, episode 150, recorded July 24, 2015. 45 drives. This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by Veridesk. Convert your existing desk or cubicle into a standing desk. Veridesk is height adjustable and lets you easily switch between sitting and standing. To learn more, visit veridesk.com. That's V-A-R-I desk.com. And by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100-plus job sites, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/Twyat. And by PagerDuty. PagerDuty decreases alerting noise for IT operations and developers to ensure that the right engineers are notified at the right time. Increase your uptime and sign up for a 14-day free trial at PagerDuty.com/Twit. Welcome to Twyat, This Week in Enterprise Tech. It's the show dedicated to the enterprise professional, the IT pro, and the geek who just wants to know how the world is connected. I'm your host, Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit, your guide to all things in the enterprise. And I'm joined by my regular co-host, a good friend of mine, Mr. Curtis Franklin. Curtis, how are things over on the right coast?
Padre, it's a rainy day in Florida, but we're here in the Swamp Studio, happy to be joining everyone on Twyat.
And, of course, Brian Chi is still on vacation. He's currently taking off from gravel runways somewhere in Alaska. He said he might try to pop into the chat room, but I doubt he's going to get the connectivity. Well, now, not replacing him, but taking his part for this episode will be Oliver RIST. You remember Oliver? He's sort of our Jiminy Cricket. He's the man who brings a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of experience, and more than a little bit of snark to This Week in Enterprise Tech. He's going to be coming on in a bit, but before we get to that, let's go ahead and start with the Enterprise Blips. This first one is all about Microsoft's cloud buy. Now, Satya Nadella has been saying that he wants to push Microsoft more and more into the cloud, and now Redmond has shelled out $1/3 billion to help it do just that. This week, Microsoft announced that it has agreed to acquire Adallom, a back-end cloud security provider, for $320 million. The purchase is an interesting one for Microsoft because it seems to move a bolster of internal security for their existing cloud services. It's not an acquisition of a new profit center. Adallom's tools provide anomaly analysis and usage patterns useful for defending infrastructure against attack, while also offering more granular control over data access for existing Office 365 using enterprises. In any case, look for Microsoft soon to position Office 365 as, quote, the productivity suite for those who are serious about data security.
Speaking of acquisitions, IBM buys a cloud database. On Thursday, IBM purchased San Mateo, California-based Compose. Now, Compose is a privately held company that provides MongoDB, Redis, Elasticsearch, PostgreSQL, and other database as a service offerings aimed at web and mobile app developers. Why did IBM do such a thing? According to Derek Schottel, general manager of IBM Cloud Data Services, IBM is targeting what they think is the next generation of builders trying to create applications that are cloud native and built on top of a whole suite of cloud services that encompass content, data, and analytics. Compose isn't the first IBM Cloud database acquisition, and it's not likely to be the last. It seems that Big Blue is looking to the big cloud to find big customer wins in the new world of web-centric enterprise applications.
Now, we all know that Google wants to index the world's information. That is, unless that information happens to be the salary information of their workforce. Last week, a series of tweets from a user by the name of Erica Joy blew up. The tweets from a then Google employee by the name of Erica Baker detailed the rise of a cooperative spreadsheet at Google in which employees were invited to post their salaries. By the time she left Google, the spreadsheet had the salaries of about 5% of the Google workforce. Employees started using the spreadsheet to negotiate higher salaries, and to address the pay gap between sexes and ethnicities. While Google's official policy is, quote, employees are free to share their salaries with one another if they choose, unquote, Erica's tweets detail how she was punished for the spreadsheet, first by vague threats, then by her manager blocking peer bonuses from her colleagues, and finally being stonewalled by formerly friendly execs.
Microsoft presses send on to iOS. If email carries way too much content and overhead for your busy life, Microsoft has a solution. Send is Microsoft's email app that gets rid of unnecessary baggage like subject lines and signatures to distill email to its brutal core. And now, Send is available on iOS. It's important to note that it's available on iOS first. Windows Mobile and Android versions are coming later. The app works with Office 365 to allow quick swipe-instigated messages like "on my way" or "got it," and it seems like Microsoft's attempt to keep email meaningful to the Twitter and SMS generations. Got it? Send is on its way.
Hey, Amazon. Google just ate your lunch. Yesterday, Google turned the key on their nearline cloud storage service, launching it into the general availability public. Using a combination of flash and hard drive storage, Nearline promises fast retrieval of cloud-stored data, 99% uptime, on-demand priority I/O for when you need data faster than the normally provisioned 4 megabytes per second, and a partnership roster that includes NetApp, Veritas, Iron Mountain, Cloudberry, and others. Oh, and 100 petabytes for free for the first 6 months. Obviously aimed at pulling customers away from Amazon Web Services, Google has even gone as far as creating a total cost of ownership calculator that will tell prospective customers how many bags of cash they can carry away by switching to Nearline.
Windows 10 gets virtual for real security. Windows 10 has received a lot of attention for its flashy user interface and improved internals. Microsoft hasn't been ignoring security, though, and when it comes to the latest version of its flagship operating system, one of the biggest security updates in Windows 10 is the use of virtualization as a means of preventing identity theft and distribution of malware. The Windows component that facilitates communication, also known as the Local Security Authority, or LSA, can give a hacker full authentication if successfully compromised. In Windows 10, the LSA is moved into a separate container that serves as a virtualization-based security, or VBS, environment. This way, even if the OS were compromised, an attacker wouldn't be able to assume control of the authentication process. It's not as sexy as a new interface, but it's good to know that Microsoft is taking care of security along with everything else in Windows 10.
Flash-based storage appliances are the future, unless you're Cisco. After acquiring flash storage array vendor Whiptail in 2013 for more than $400 million, Cisco has killed their Invicta flash storage product line. Invicta was to have nicely filled out Cisco's already impressive data center credentials with a must-have I/O acceleration storage appliance with support for between 1.9 and 40 gigabits per second of bandwidth and 250 to 4 million IOPS per second. But serious scaling issues halted sales of the line in March of this year, killing deployment momentum. Now, don't expect this to mean the end of Cisco's I/O acceleration aspirations, and be on the lookout for a Cisco purchase of another flash array manufacturer in the near future. And breaking news, one last one, a bonus blip. The FCC has approved the $48.5 billion acquisition of DirecTV by AT&T. The move will combine the telecom giant with the largest satellite provider in the United States, pointing out that the acquisition will not hurt competition because, well, let's be honest, there is no competition in satellite delivery. The FCC nonetheless has placed a few requirements on the deal. The combined entity will be required to expand deployment of broadband access to 12.5 million customers, as well as E-rate schools and libraries and low-income households. There will also be stipulations as to how they can leverage the new network for video delivery, and they will be required to submit a new interconnection agreement for FCC approval. Well, that does it for the blips. In a second, we're going to get to the Enterprise Bytes. We're going to be bringing in Oliver RIST from PC Mag. But before we do that, let's go ahead and thank the first sponsor of this episode of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Now, did you know that the average office worker spends about 6 hours a day sitting at his or her desk? Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised when I thought of that myself, but it makes sense. That's what we do. That's how we work. We sit in front of our computers and we do our thing. Now, Unfortunately, that has some serious health consequences, according to the Mayo Clinic. Being sedentary is not good for you. Not only does it put you at risk for a whole range of health problems that can shorten your lifespan, but sitting all day is also a great way to suck all the energy out of your body. We know that most of the enterprise works behind a desk, but you don't have to accept the big sit-down. Not if you've got Veridesk. Veridesk offers a variety of high-quality, height-adjustable desks that let you easily switch between sitting and standing. And unlike other options, you don't have to get rid of your current desk. A Veridesk converts your existing desk or cubicle into a standing desk with no assembly, installation, or boss approval required. It comes fully assembled. You just pull it out of the box, put it on your desk, and put your monitors and gear on it. You'll be ready to work in no time. Now, when you want to stand, and you really should stand at least 3-4 times a day, simply pull the handles on either side, and the spring-loaded Veridesk will rise to any of 11 different height settings, along with your keyboard and your monitors. And because Veridesk sits on top of your existing workspace, it's easier to set up than a standing desk because it doesn't require you to completely redo your office. It's also more affordable than other standing desks, with prices starting at just $275 plus shipping. A life hacker included Veridesk in their 5 best standing desk guide, and it has also been featured on Product Hunt and Gear Patrol. We've got a Veridesk Pro Plus 36 here in the Brick House, and now really everybody wants them. In fact, I don't know what happened to the one that was supposed to go on my desk. I'm pretty sure someone stole it. Now, here's what we want you to do. We want you to try Veridesk. We want you to try standing a little bit of your day and see if it doesn't do wonders for your health, for your back, for your posture, for those aches and pains that you get after a day of sitting in front of your monitors. Visit Veridesk.com to learn more about Veridesk and check out their wide range of height-adjustable desks for your desk or cubicle. And when you purchase a Veridesk, be sure to tell them that you heard about it on Twitter. Throw us some love. That's Veridesk, V-A-R-I, desk.com, Veridesk. And we thank them for the support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Let's go ahead and jump into the Enterprise Bites, and we welcome back to the show a man who I think I've known for about 10 years now, Mr. Oliver RIST, now with PC Mag. Oliver, thank you for coming back to This Week in Enterprise Tech.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, as you, I'm a little flustered because my editor-in-chief just opened the door and shot me with a Nerf dart, so now you know where I'm working.
We have that here too, but we use real guns.
Yeah, well, usually I try to wait till I'm off camera before that, so we'll have to. That's right here.
Oliver, it's been many, many months since the last time you were on This Week in Enterprise Tech, and of course, there's been this exciting transition. You've now been moved over to PC Mag. You're getting settled in. What's going to be your beat? What are you working on? Is it Enterprise? Are you covering Microsoft? What can we expect to see from you in the near future?
Yeah, so the story of Davis goes. PC Mag, began as a business-style pub. Then they started going consumer, and then somewhere around the last time I worked for them, which was 2007, right before I went to Microsoft, they split, where eWeek took all the enterprise-type coverage and went one way, and PC Mag and the consumer side went the other way, and I went to Microsoft. So I'm now back. The two companies are very separate, and PC Mag decided it needs to ramp up its business coverage because they pretty much don't have any right now. So that's my beat, business, and I will define that further as life moves on.
Fantastic. Well, we're glad to have you back on the show, and we're glad to have you for the next couple of topics, starting with, you've probably heard about this. I bet this has been floating around the PC Mag office. Evidently, your smart car is trying to kill you. Now, this story has been developing over the last week. Actually, no, I'm going to go further than that. This story has been developing over the last year. We first started hearing about these kinds of exploits last year when you had, do you remember BMW's connected drive? And people were saying, wait a minute, I don't think that some of these network devices in a car are actually properly air-gapped. Well, in January at the Asian Black Hat, there was a young inventor who came up with a device that you could plug into the onboard diagnostic port and essentially take control of everything from braking to air conditioning. Well, we now have two researchers who they combined with a Wired journalist by the name of Charlie Miller and Chris Ballecer, and they did a demonstration, a proof of concept, that you could use the connected device inside of Chrysler's newest vehicles, like the Jeep Cherokee, to take control of everything. Now, the attack is actually quite sophisticated. It's a pivot. You could consider this an advanced persistent threat. They know that the connected device is connected to the entertainment head unit. That's the little screen in the center of the console that allows it to control everything from what you're listening to what you're watching. But they found out that because it was connected to the controller area network in the car, they had access to things that they shouldn't have access to. They were able to turn on the air conditioner. They were able to turn on the radio and make it so that he couldn't turn it down. Then they did the truly scary things. They disabled the transmission. They were able to mess with the power steering. And then they were able to disable the brakes so he couldn't stop. And now it's truly, truly horrifying. This video has been criticized. People are saying, well, why did you have to do this? Why would you have to do this on a freeway at 70 miles an hour? But it's definitely got people's attention. Let me throw this over to you first, Curtis. We've theorized about these sorts of attacks, thinking that, okay, they're probably coming. To be honest, I didn't think they'd be here this quickly. What about you?
Well, last year at Black Hat, I talked to a couple of researchers who showed that this was possible, and they did some demonstration last year. So I don't think it's all that surprising. To me, the surprising thing was that even after a demonstration like that, it seems that the engineers at the major automotive firms just don't take seriously the notion that anyone would want to hack their vehicles. That's what we see in things like the fact that the systems within the vehicle aren't separate. You know, these hackers got in through the entertainment system, which was, of course, tied tightly to the fly-by-wire or drive-by-wire systems that control throttle and braking and other essential car services. Why would they do that? Because it never occurred to them that anything could go wrong. That failure of imagination is what's going to get us in trouble. And it's a failure that we see more often than not when it comes to security.
There are a few things that are really, really wrong about this. The first is the fact that these devices were all in the same network. It's the controller area network. That bus in the car was never designed to be connected to the internet. It should never be connected to the internet. They didn't design that with security in mind, so any security is just heaped on the top. The other thing, and so that's forgivable, the fact that, okay, we've got a bus that's not intended to do that. But the unforgivable part is that there is in any way a connection between the entertainment system and the vital components of the car. There's no reason why my stereo needs to be hooked up to my brakes, my transmission, or my ECU. Oliver, we've talked about this before. I know that you've covered this a little bit when we talk about the Internet of Things. It's this great idea of getting all of these data points about so many things and having everything immediately connectable and upgradable, et cetera, et cetera. But we've often called it the Internet of Things that shouldn't be connected to the Internet. Is this just another instance of people who didn't know that their technology would eventually end up connecting to a much larger network?
I don't think it's the people's fault. Well, but if by people you mean users. And by the way, the story hits very close to home. I just bought a new Jeep Cherokee last month, so a little cranky about this. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I want to be in the room at this engineering meeting where they thought it'd be a good idea to hook up the brakes to the internet. I don't understand the logic train there. I don't. And this, somebody was bothering me here, so I didn't quite hear all of Curtis's statement that people didn't think they would hack cars. Why would you not think that? This is so obvious. We've all seen it coming. We've seen it coming for what? At least 2 years. I don't know what to say. I mean, until security becomes top of mind for these guys. They better give me a way to disable all these features. I'm staying off of the Internet of Things that shouldn't be connected to the internet.
Right, right. Now, to their credit, Chrysler actually, they did a mea culpa, and they've responded very, very quickly. They already have a patch, which some people are speculating. We can't know for sure until, actually, I'm getting one of these USB drives because my brother, like you, last month bought a Jeep Cherokee. Thought it was a great car until he heard about this. But it's...
I want that USB drive.
We're going to try to get your connection cleared up in just a bit. Oliver, we're getting really, really bad connectivity from you. But Chrysler has, they'll be issuing, they've gotten a recall of 1.4 million vehicles. If you can't go into a dealership, they'll actually send you a USB drive that you plug into your entertainment center. And supposedly it will just firewall you off from the wireless device, which, by the way, you cannot turn off. I've had people say, well, if I don't subscribe to the service, then I should be safe. That's not actually true, because the way that it works is Chrysler worked out a deal with Sprint to build connectivity into all these devices. Even if you don't subscribe, you're still connected, because they want the ability to turn on the service the minute that you subscribe, which means it still has to be pinged in some way, shape, or form. Now, Curtis, let me throw back over to you. We're going to see more and more of this as the Internet of Things evolves, and as these manufacturers build devices that are ill-suited to be on the Internet. We're going to have to start to see more of these recalls. We're going to have to see more of these emergency patches. We talked about this with Oliver a while back when we were talking about credit cards and switching over to a more secure format. Where is the pain threshold? Where does it become so painful for manufacturers to do this over and over again that they actually start saying enough is enough? We're not releasing anything into the wild until it's gone thorough testing.
I hate to say it, but I think it's quite likely that it won't be until we have a handful of confirmed accidents from these systems being hacked. The possibility isn't going to move most automobile manufacturers. I mean, we've seen this in the past with things like the ignition switches from General Motors, the airbags that Takata is only now replacing. Much earlier, things like the saddle gas tanks in pickup trucks, and the infamous exploding gas tank in the back end of Ford Pintos. You know, one of the problems is that we have over a century of automotive engineers thinking in a particular set of ways. And in the last 20 years or so, one of the mantras has been, let's reduce weight. Let's make the vehicles weigh as little as possible, because that helps make them more fuel efficient. We don't think about it now, but the wiring harness in a car can add weight. So obviously, if they can reduce the number of wires by putting multiple networks over the same set of wires, then they're going to do it. And as long as you're putting the networks over the wires, then why should they be logically separated when they're not physically separated? You're absolutely right. And Oliver is absolutely right. People have to begin thinking about this at the engineering level. We're seeing companies like Tesla do that now. And I think that's one of many things that's got to spread from a small upstart like Tesla into the bulk of the automotive industry.
But wait, the story's not over. That's not all. And I'm going to throw this one back over to Oliver. This was bad enough as it is, but a day after we heard about this hack, a Manchester-based company by the name of the NCC Group announced a similar hack that used a different vector for infection. Now, instead of the cellular connection on a car's entertainment system, it uses the DAB, that's the digital audio broadcasting signal that is normally sideband along with radio signals. That's the thing that allows you to have track names on your stereo. Well, they were able to use a very low-cost software programmable radio. In fact, I've got 3 of them down in the basement, and a laptop to spoof that signal, to fake it. And they found out that they could infect the head unit of a vehicle simply by broadcasting a signal that sent some remote exploit code. There's not any interactivity like there is with the cell phone hack. It's not like I can have the car broadcast back to me. But the scary thing about this hack is that it's got a much larger range. Rather than targeting a single car, you could set one of these up in an area, broadcasting with enough power to hit multiple cars at the same time. It would infect those head units, and you could tell it to shut down the engine. You could tell it to roll down the windows, unlock the doors of cars in a parking lot. This one is one of these where it's so like, oh, it sounds not as impressive until you realize that the shotgun range means that it's even more disruptive. Oliver, what I want to throw at you is this question of, the reason why this is happening is because we like convenience. We want our smart cars. We want the ability to control our air conditioner from afar, from our smartphone. We like the convenience of having everything connected. But when does the consumer start demanding, you know what, I don't want this connected because I don't like the ability of someone else to exploit that convenience?
I don't think the consumer is necessarily going to have the answer to that question. Right? Most consumers probably don't even know this happened, except for maybe the Jeep hack because it went viral. But the NCC thing, right? That didn't go viral. It didn't cross my desk yesterday. Ergo, I I bet you, most of the consumers out there have no clue that this is possible. So they're not going to be the ones who clamor, and they shouldn't be the ones who clamor for this to get fixed, right? This has to happen. This has to happen at the engineering level, at the manufacturing level. The fact that this is even possible, I mean, that somebody set something up where your radio could turn off your car, that connection, that's just ridiculous.
Right. Actually, just
I don't know what the QA process is, but that's to be, yeah.
Yeah, as a side note, I actually tried this yesterday on my car. I do have a software-defined radio, and I tried setting a signal on that digital sideband, and I was actually able to send messages to my radio screen. I wasn't able to infect the head unit because I don't know what exploit code that they're using, but the fact that I can send messages that will show up on anyone's radio who's tuned into that station at that given time, it just tells me there's legs here. There's legs here. Let's go ahead and move on to the second enterprise bite. This one is good news and bad news for Microsoft. Now, in the last quarter of fiscal year 2015, Microsoft reported a $3.2 billion loss, which meant a $780 million restructuring charge, a $8.4 billion write-down in integration and restructuring costs, and, of course, the $7.5 million write-down from Microsoft's acquisition of Nokia. It was a massive hit. And there were a lot of very gleeful Microsoft haters who were pointing to that as, well, yeah, Microsoft's done. However, even though it was a massive hit, and even though it was a really, really big cost write-down, it was also an incredibly good year for Microsoft. Revenue of $22.2 billion on $93.6 billion in revenue, surpassing expectations for revenue earnings, plus 46% growth in server, CRM, Dynamics, and commercial, as well as an 88% growth in cloud services revenue, along with an annualized run of $8 billion. Now, even Surface, which was almost a dirty word during the last days of Bomber, grew revenue 117% to $888 million. And Bing, yeah, that's right, Bing jumped to 20.3% of U.S. market share. Now, all of this in a year at which Nadella has really had to reshape what Microsoft is going to be. There's been a lot of painful cuts. There's been a lot of refocusing of product lines and strategy. And so people are looking at this saying it should have been much worse. And then the fact that it was, it means that it was a huge victory. Oliver, let me start with you because you've had, obviously, connections with Microsoft. You've seen some of the negative press. You've seen people saying, oh, this is horrible. This was a huge loss. What's your take?
Well, the Microsoft haters, it's Microsoft is done. I mean, obviously, no way, right? I'm not happy with the Nokia. Either, right? I mean, I'm not going to talk about other people at Microsoft, but that wasn't a popular concept. So the fact that they took a stab at it and they decided that it didn't work. It was a gutsy move, right? In my opinion, to just up and cut it loose. I might have chased it a little harder. I think they were doing some good work there. I don't think that organization was putting out bad phones. So had it been me, I might have chased it a little bit harder. But if that's not Nadella's direction for the company, then I think it was a ballsy move.
Right. Curtis. One of the things that the naysayers have been saying about Nadella's approach is, well, he's denigrating Windows. Windows has always been a huge profit center for Microsoft. And, I mean, Nadella's giving away Windows 10 to anyone who has Windows 8 or Windows 7, which is basically everybody. And he's also been doing this crazy strategy of web first, cloud first, push us into services and devices rather than laying back on what we know will make us money. And so is this turnout? Is what we see in fiscal year 2015, is this a vindication for Nadella, or is this ammo for his detractors?
I think from most of the financial community, it's vindication. If you look at what happened to Microsoft's share prices, they went up after this because remember that share prices tend to be what they like to call forward-looking indicators. In other words, what do the investors think is going to happen in the future? And I think there are a lot of people who feel that what he's done is make some necessary steps, whether it be moving away from depending on Windows so much to taking the pain of recognizing that the Nokia purchase was essentially an expensive way to get some intellectual property. What we're seeing is the recognition that the traditional desktop computing platform is no longer going to be the primary engine driving the computer industry. And I think that what he's trying to do is set Microsoft up to take advantage of whatever the platform is, whether it's a smartphone or a tablet, a convertible, something that we haven't even seen yet. By going cloud-centric and subscription-based, what he's trying to do is get a more consistent revenue stream and be positioned to take advantage of the hardware, whatever that hardware is going to be.
Oliver, one last question to you on this. There's been a 34% drop in revenue from licensing. And a lot of people are pointing at Windows 8 as a huge reason for that. And they're also saying this new strategy of Windows as a service isn't going to help it. And in fact, we're only going to see increased drops in licensing revenue. In fact, licensing revenue for the operating system may really be done. It may now just be a loss leader for Microsoft's new service attitude. How do you make money on Windows as a service?
The subscription model, I think, applies just fine to an operating system. The fact that he's giving it away for free, there's several reasons that he might be doing that, and I can't pretend to know them, right? But that new service, update model that he's put in place, that would require a certain amount of installed presence to make that viable, right? So getting it broadly adopted quickly, which is not a forte for Windows, right? A new version of Windows doesn't generally jump out there in large numbers. I think that's a viable reason for at least one viable reason for why he's doing it. As far as no one knows how this is going to work. So to have somebody predict that it's the wrong thing to do, I mean, you're premature. Right? This could be the greatest thing ever. I don't know. You're going to have to give it six months to a year, and then he better be ready to make just as ballsy a call on that as he did on Nokia in case it starts to go sideways.
Now, just all three of us, really quickly, I believe that he's made some absolutely ballsy, absolutely gutsy, some very criticizable decisions, but I do like what he's doing. I love what's happened over the last year. Curtis, just looking at, in general, what Nadella has done with Microsoft, do you like it? Do you see this as a continuing trend where the other parts of the business are growing at ridiculous rates, even as they lose their traditional profit centers?
I do. And I tell you what, I think that Nadella is in the process of pulling off something that Michael Dell felt that he could not pull off on the hardware side. That is transitioning from a known, rather stable source of revenue to a new revenue model while remaining a public company. Michael Dell felt that he would not get the support from investors that was necessary for him to take he was estimating a couple of years of hard hits like this in order to transition away from the desktop PC being the prime source of revenue. Nadella has the resources, and these other revenue streams are growing fast enough that he is being able to do what Michael Dell couldn't, and I think it portends good things long-term for the folks up in Redmond.
What about you, Oliver? Good, bad, indifferent?
You sound tired. I'm kind of changing my mind. I'm starting to lean toward good. I wasn't a big fan of Nadella when he first took office. I think a lot of people were throwing him kudos back then for something that really wasn't his doing. I didn't like his immediate move toward cutting. Right, that's a move that tends to primarily be made to appease your new board members. I think Windows 10 is really what I would consider Nadella's first true baby, right? And I think he made some good moves with it. And I think he's over the past year, he's shown that he's got the resolve to keep making decisions that will move that forward in the right direction, even if the decisions are temporarily painful.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for that discussion. When we come back, we're going to be bringing in 45Drives. Maybe you don't know who they are, but you will. We've got Brett Kelly, who is an R&D engineer, who will be telling us about some of the issues you need to be concerned about when you spin up your next data center storage project. But before we do that, let's go ahead and thank the second sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech. And let me ask you another question. Do you own your own business? Are you responsible for staffing your business with the brightest minds and, well, the most productive employees? Well, if so, you should know that summer is one of the best times to hire the new people to fill those spots that you need. Your competitors are on vacation in between projects, and some of the best hires are just coming off their vacations ready to get back to work. In other words, it's the perfect time to get the candidates you need before they get snatched up. But you got to do it the right way. Posting jobs in one place isn't enough to find quality candidates, and short staffing leaves little time to post to dozens of job sites. But thanks to ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100-plus job sites with a single click and be instantly matched to candidates from over 4 million resumes. You just post once, and within 24 hours, you watch your candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. They've been used by over 400,000 businesses, and you can try it now for free. Getting the right people for your company is so important. Do you really want to leave it up to chance? Vivian, a happy ZipRecruiter client, said, and I quote, "I signed up for a free account and didn't expect a customer service call until it came time for me to apply for a paid subscription. Just after an hour after sign up, I got an excellent call from Jeff, a customer service rep. In the first 2 days, I found 2 quality candidates." ZipRecruiter worked for Vivian, and I know it can work for you too. Now, here's what we want you to do. If you're looking for the right people, if you want to make your business a success, if you want to be productive, if you want the best and the brightest minds, you can try ZipRecruiter.com for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Twyett. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Twyett. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Let's go ahead and get to my favorite part of the show. That's when we bring in a special guest to tell us a little bit about what's going on in the world of the enterprise. We bring in Brett Kelly. He's an R&D engineer from 45Drives.
Hello, everyone.
Brett, thank you very much for coming on to Twyett.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Now, for the folks playing along at home, could you just tell us what is 45Drives?
We are a large-scale storage manufacturer. We build, manufacture and build all the from the enclosure, and we sell to many customers all over the world. We focus on open design, low cost, and really promoting a community. And we're putting storage back in the hands of the user and away from the third-party vendors.
Now, Brett, this is one of those interesting moments we have in the evolution of information technology, and that is storage has now become so ubiquitous, so cheap, so easy to get from a third party or to just buy an appliance that people don't even really think about it anymore. You don't think about, okay, I need a bunch of hard drives. I need to get a reputable vendor. I need to make sure I've got an infrastructure that will support me. I need to make sure that I check out all my power requirements. They just say, okay, well, I'll go to Google, which is going to give me 100 petabytes for free, and that will be my storage plan. Why would I go with someone like 45Drives? Why would I partner with you? Why would I look at your products? Why would I look at your services rather than just going off to my nearest data center and saying, well, what do you have that's cheapest?
Well, we put the power in your hands. So, yeah, it's convenience you get out of the Google and now that, but we're here to help, and we want to demystify the fact that one might not want to worry about those things because they're scared of them. They're scared, oh, I don't want to worry about the power. I don't want to worry about my hard drives and all that. But we're here starting to show you that for the small to middle, say, video producer who is now shooting 4K video, needs somewhere to put all their storage, you can buy the box yourself and look after it yourself. It's not as scary and not as difficult as it seems. Right. And we're here to provide low-cost hardware that allows that, very open design, so that you can customize to your own needs, and really to educate people that you can do this yourself. Right. And if that's the route you want to take, by all means, we're here to help.
Now, I do want to say, I know you're a little nervous. That's okay. Just take a deep breath. It's all good. I specifically asked for an engineer. I wanted a technical person. The 45Drives had a PR person ready to talk to me about all the strategy points. I know that's not your strength, but you came on specifically so you could talk to us about tech, and I know my audience loves that. They love the tech, and they like to hear from people who deal with it on a daily basis. One of the questions that we get all the time whenever we talk about storage is whether or not enterprise drives are worth it. This is one of those things that I'll get it on Twight, I'll get on one of my other shows, Know How, which is, well, I've got a choice between this 4 gigabyte drive for $100, but I've got a 4 gigabyte enterprise drive and it's $250. I don't understand the difference. Isn't this just the same drive? It's from the same company, it's the same capacity, it's the same speeds. What would be the simplest way to explain the difference between a consumer product and an enterprise product at the same format, the same capacity?
Application. It all depends on your application. If you need a whole bunch of storage, but say you write to it maybe like once a week, and then you don't really need to access it, consumer drives are fine. You're not getting constant use out of them, and that's fine. But where the enterprise drives really come in handy is when you have, say you're hosting a website and you have thousands of users coming in and writing and reading from this thing. You can't afford any downtime. And that's where the enterprise drives really come in to play, is when you need those always-on applications. See, when I first started here, I truly did believe that enterprise drives were just consumer drives with an enterprise sticker on them. And I learned that that wasn't the case. Now, that's not to say consumer drives aren't good enough. It's just it's truly application-based.
Okay, well, it's easy to say that, but what kind of data are you getting back? I mean, what are you seeing from your customers when they load up one of your arrays with, let's say, 12 Seagate drives, 7200 series, or they go for Western Digital enterprise drives? Is there really that much of a difference when you start talking about failures and return on investment?
I can't speak on ROI, but in terms of failures, yes. Very often, even in our own lab, you'll be pulling consumer drives out fairly commonly. I've seen from my own experience where they work just as fast and just as well, but they do fail sooner. You get bad sectors that happen a lot sooner than enterprise drives do. And really, from education I've gotten, I've learned that it's the components they put into the drives. A lot of vibration feedback is a big saver for that. Not only do they dampen vibrations to try to avoid them all entirely, but they've got feedback sensors to sense that, oh, so say the track, it's spinning, and if your needle's going to fall off the track, if you would imagine, what they will do is they widen the tracks on all the on the magnetic disc just a little bit, so to give more literally wiggle room. So you'll have your vibration sensor that'll have the feedback loop that corrects for any vibrations to keep your drives on track, but as well, the wider track on the drive gives you more wiggle room, so you can shake the drives around a bit and keep them going.
I heard an interesting story about that in a deployment. I'm not going to mention where it is, but there was a deployment of a huge number of rotating drives, and they were saying how they were running into an issue with consumer drives because you get so much harmonic vibration when you pack so many of these, 100 drives per cabinet, that you were running into that vibration issue where it kept going off the track, and you had an entire cabinet of these things that they would keep throwing each other off. And when they switched to enterprise drives, that entirely went away. And that was precisely the point that they said was the solution, which is wider tracks, more tolerance for vibration. Now, if you were going to have a client come to you and ask for what they would need, of course, you would tell them to go with enterprise drives, but what would be the difference between a consumer, someone who just needs a consumer drive, and someone who needs an enterprise drive?
I'd say it's completely based on workload. If you plan on reading and writing to these things, like at least more like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, definitely get enterprise drives. If it's a type of thing where you just need a huge storage shelf a digital shelf, if you will, that you're only going to dump to maybe once or twice a month, consumer drives are fine because they take your data and then they sit there and do nothing. Where the enterprise really come in handy is the constant use, and you'll notice they manufacturers rate their hard drives workload based on terabytes per year or so. So you can have multiple models or multiple versions of the same hard drive model that's just rated for different workloads. So again, reiterating the fact that it's just for constant use, honestly, is where enterprise drives, where I see the biggest benefit. If you're just storing data, like cold storage, or maybe a personal NOS, you're a data hoarder, you love to store movies, then consumer drives are perfect for you. It's when you've got a lot of users writing and reading from your servers is when you're going to need enterprise drives.
Right. We've got Keith512 in the chat room who is actually voicing a very common opinion, which is, well, look, if I'm looking at the same capacity hard drive, one's consumer, one's enterprise, most of the time from the same manufacturer, and the enterprise drive will cost 2, 3, maybe even 4 times as much as the consumer drive, the calculus is, well, I can have this thing fail 3 times and I'm still going to be ahead of the game. But the other part of the calculus is, well, what happens in the time that it's failed? Is that something that you address when you are helping a client figure out what they need for their storage needs? Are you saying, can you handle failures? Are you okay with going off to the device and replacing drives? Or is this something that you want to put in a closet and just forget about it?
Yeah, exactly. Because some of our customers, we have such a wide range of customers. We will have a home user, someone who's trying to make a startup video production. Video production is a big, we've got a lot of customers who buy for that. But they're literally working out of their living room. So they'll buy one of our units, and they don't mind using consumer drives because, as you said, they could buy 3 for the price of 1 enterprise drives, and it's literally right beside them. So, drive failed, they'll just pop in a new one, no problem. But on the other end of that spectrum, we'll have customers that either rent space in a data center so they can't get to their drives whenever they need to, or they've got so many pods that they would have to hire someone to work 24/7 just in case a drive goes down. And that's when we'll say spring enterprise drives. But it falls down to your application. If you can tolerate a little downtime to save some money and get consumer drives, by all means. But that's where you kind of have to run your risk calculations there.
I helped with an installation that I think at their height they had 8,000 drives, 8,000 platters. Wow. And they had, their CIO made this rousing speech about why they had gone with consumer drives. And they're saying, well, we're going to assume that some are going to fail, but in the long term, because we're going to be upgrading these on a regular basis, it really doesn't matter. And what ended up happening is they spent far more money than they would have going with enterprise drives because they actually hired someone whose job was to go down to the data center at least once a day and swap out failed drives. Mm-hmm. So again, yeah, you're right. I mean, if the thing's going to be sitting next to you, consumer drive probably will work just fine. If you're going to need remote hands, or if this is an actual enterprise space where it's going to cost you time and money to swap out drives, that's got to figure into what drive you buy. All right, let's address the elephant in the room, because we've been talking about spinning drives, and that's great. We could talk forever about the difference between consumer and enterprise drives. But if we're talking storage and if we're talking enterprise that has big budgets, we got to talk about flash. Flash is the thing. Everyone wants flash, from SanDisk's, the SandForce, their super flash array, to Cisco, which just canceled their Invicta flash array, which was supposed to be the one that everyone moved to. You've even got Kingston, who's moving into PCIe-based storage for servers in racks. Where does that turn? I mean, obviously it's complementary. You're never going to be able to store everything on flash that you want to store on flash. But where does that fit into 45Drives' view of enterprise storage?
Well, yeah, it's flash storage is where it's going. It's so fast. It's awesome. It can do everything. But like you said, it's still expensive enough that you can't imagine to get all your data into your flash drives. So one thing you're hearing a lot now is automated tiered storage, like a hybrid machine. Now, we've been playing with that ourselves, mainly just in the research phase. There's a great open source Linux project, actually. It's called B-Tier. And we've spent a lot of time playing with that. But right now, we're focusing, that's more of a development goal. That's something we want. Right now, we focus on straight hard drive, like spinning magnetic discs, because they're solid, they work. We know exactly how they're going to fail. Yeah, no, PCI, especially PCI flash storage is very cool. I've been experimenting with a few different cards here, and it's fun. I get to play with a bunch of stuff I'd never be able to afford on my own. So,
well, that's how I feel. I remember, I think it was Interop 2000. When did Fusion IO go public? That was it Wozniak? I think that was one of Wozniak's companies, and they demonstrated a flash array that just blew people away. I mean, they had a demonstration at the Interop booth where they were playing like 2,000 concurrent high-definition video streams off of one array. And people were saying, oh, this is the future. Everything's going to be flash. And here we are at least 10 years later, and, you know, Fusion IO has now been bought by SanDisk, and it's been reformatted into another product. And flash is important, but most people are talking about it as a I/O accelerator rather than where everything goes. But yeah, okay. Let's move on a little bit. We may come back to that in a bit when I bring in my co-host. I do want to talk a little bit about staggered power drop, because this is something that everyone who's designing storage in a data center needs to consider. If you are using rotating media, you can't just turn everything on at the same time, right? What's the surge you get when you first start up a drive?
You get a really large surge, to the point where I've done my own measurements with it, where I literally hooked up a current meter to the pod and watched the 12-volt line. It all happens on the 12-volt line, by the way. So that is the biggest thing to look at when you're trying to size your PSU. Hard drives need a lot of current on the 12-volt line when they start, and that's just about it. However, it's huge. 45 enterprise Western Digital drives will pull 86 amps on startup. And to put that in perspective, steady state is like 17 amps. So, but that happens in 4 seconds. Huge spike, right back down. Now, where the great thing about staggered spin up is, though, it depends on your software, of course. Like the way we've got it set up, we use a method called power up and standby. But you can reduce that 86 peak to, I think it was like 1.26%, or not percent, times steady state. So you'll just see a few bumps, and it'll just ramp up linearly a little bit higher, and then it just hits steady state. Now, it'll take a good 4 or 5 minutes longer to boot your system, but if you're running an enterprise server, you don't plan on turning it on and off that often.
Right. Oh, how do I do that? Let's go back to that installation that I helped with that had 8,000 plus drives. They actually didn't have a staggered startup. It was a very interesting startup process. Is this automated, or is this literally someone going around bank to bank and triggering the PDUs on every rack so that they're not starting up at the same time?
Yes, that's how it works right now. You would have to turn the machine on with a few. With at least in the case of our machines, the power supply can handle the surge, no problem. Now, we don't recommend doing that. So you would turn the pod on, you would set your staggered spin up with a convenient web GUI we have, and there you go. From now on, every time you turn your pod back on, it'll come up and staggered spin up. But I guess, like you said in your, you'd have to turn your pod on first to turn staggered spin up on. So you at least have to handle that surge once. Or you can fill half your pod, turn those on, fill the rest up, turn those on as well. Oh, as you can see, I've got my graph up there. You can see the peaks I was talking about.
So each of these peaks is another set of drives coming online?
Yes. So you can see how you can see two separate...
the starting
There's
peaks.
the five bumps, and then a little bit of space, and another 5 bumps. Those are, in our pods, there's 2 HBA cards that the drives plug into. So in that first set of peaks there, that's the first card turning on, and it's turning all the drives one by one on in their pod. And then some time goes on, and then the second card boots up. And then you get a little exaggerated peak, and then it sits at steady state. And just to be clear, these are consumer drives we're looking at right here on this graph. Okay. So you'll see your startup peaks 50. And there's another interesting point. The enterprise drives pull a lot more power than...
Well, wait. So why is that? Why do enterprise drives pull more than consumer drives?
From my understanding of it, there's literally heavier equipment in there. The magnets that they use to get it go, the mechanical payload is heavier, higher quality, and the electronics themselves, there's more to power. You've got more vibration sensors in there.
Is it significantly higher? I mean, are we talking about double-digit percentage?
I'd say it's near double.
Wow. Oh, whoa. Okay, yeah, that's a couple percentage. Wow, I had no idea. Brent, I'm going to bring my co-host back in here. We do want to have a little panel discussion about using this, actually using this knowledge in the data center. But before we do that, let's go ahead and thank the third sponsor of this episode of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Now, the tech that we use in the enterprise gets more and more reliable with every generation. Servers will fail over, switches will route around outages, and storage has redundancies for redundancies of redundancies. That's what we're just talking about. But no matter how sophisticated our tools may become, one thing will always remain true, and that is you're going to need to have an engineer, a skilled engineer, who will respond when problems erupt. And when it impacts your customers, you want to be woken from your deep sleep so that you can deal with those issues before it becomes an actual problem. Now, PagerDuty is an operations performance platform that delivers visibility and actionable intelligence to help you increase the uptime of your apps, servers, websites, and databases. It connects all of your systems into a single view, allowing you to see critical events across all of your monitoring tools. It's an essential service if your business needs your software and services to always be up. It also has over 100 ready-to-use integration, including with Nagios, New Relic, Keynote, AppDynamics, or you could roll your own with PagerDuty's APIs. You can customize it to how it fits you, how your team works best, rather than trying to change your business practices to fit the latest and greatest tool that runs on that single pane of glass. Now, here's how it works. When there's an incident, PagerDuty will first look through all of your monitoring tools. It will filter and deduplicate the alerts, and then it will alert the proper staff. But first, it's going to reduce the noise and false alerts and make sure that only actionable alerts are delivered. You don't want false alarms going out to your staff because you want them to believe that every time they get an alert, it is something they need to take care of. Not tomorrow, not the next day, but now. Now, after all of that, those alerts are dispatched by automated phone calls, SMS, email, and push notifications. PagerDuty is distributed across multiple data centers and multiple hosting providers so that your people, the people who are on call, the people who have been set to respond to your alerts, will never miss those alerts. Now, if an alert is missed, let's say someone is offline, someone can't receive the call, PagerDuty automatically escalates the issue to another team member and another until it's responded to, which means nothing ever falls through the cracks. Now, of course, PagerDuty isn't content to just tell you about problems. Its analytic tools will also identify common problems, allowing you to proactively make system improvements and prevent future outages. It's trusted by thousands of companies, including Microsoft, GitHub, Boeing, Nike, Pinterest, and Box. If they trust PagerDuty to get their people on problems before they come issues, well, shouldn't you too? Now, get the right engineer on the right problem at the right time, and do it now with PagerDuty. Visit pagerduty.com/twit to sign up for a free 14-day trial. And for as little as $19 a month, you can increase your uptime with PagerDuty. And when you sign up for a new account, you'll also get a free t-shirt. That's pagerduty.com/twit. pagerduty.com/twit. And we thank PagerDuty for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Let's get the regular gaggle of gang network guys. Curtis and Oliver. I'm sorry. I have no cool name for you guys. I should have thought of that before the show. But let's get you in here. So we've been talking about the use of rotating media. We've been talking a little bit about flash storage and where it fits into a business strategy for a company like 45Drives. And we've been talking about staggered startup. These are all issues that people need to consider when they are designing and building a data center. Oliver, let me start with you. Again, you've covered the enterprise for the longest time. The DC has never been that exciting, at least not in the last 20 years. It's sort of become a commodity issue. Do you see this as something that regular IT people, that regular CIOs and CTOs will start to take notice of, especially as we move to this new era of keeping certain things out of the cloud, certain things nearline, certain things offline?
I think if anything's going to pull their attention to this kind of thing is, one, is anti-cloud, right? I'm not putting my stuff out there because it's going to get stolen. And 2, app performance. However, listening to Brett here, my last, my IT hands-on experience with this, I guess I could go back to my last Windows Server iteration there. We got all excited about virtual storage, right? That's how to make it easier. That's how to get all this stuff, lump it into one logical globule, slap a drive letter name on it, and go. Talking about enterprise versus consumer, now you're making it more complicated, right? Now I have to think more, I have to understand more. I don't know what the parameters are. I don't know how to optimize this. I don't really want to know how to optimize this. So if I'm putting on my little marketing hat for 45Drives, I would say be very clear about what the value add here is, aside from better hardware. It sounded like you had software, which would be great, but, detailed, man.
Details indeed. Kelly, I think actually we've got a couple of people in the audience too who are saying, oh, I like this Kelly guy. He actually knows what he's talking about. Curtis, let me throw over to you. Now, I like what Oliver is saying. There is this move, this idea of, okay, maybe it wasn't such a good idea to throw everything up on the web. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to put all of our very, very sensitive data in the cloud. And so even Microsoft and Nadella, we were going to cover this as a blip, but we ran out of time. Even Nadella has said, no, we're not taking away premise networking. We are emphasizing the cloud, but we're also saying we understand that there are some things that are best run on your campus. I'd like combining that with 45Drives' idea of let's give you a very competent chassis filled with enterprise drives that you can keep on your premise, that you can keep control of, that you can take offline if you need to. Is this something that's being whispered about at all at Information Week Radio? Are people now starting to have that conversation of what can we keep in the general pool of data and what do we need to pull away?
Oh, absolutely. And realistically, most of the cloud providers that I know of speak of it in those terms as well. The question isn't, will everything go to the cloud? I'm aware of exactly one company of any size that has fully virtualized their data center, and I don't know how that's working since they've been acquired by another company. Everybody else is looking at a hybrid architecture of some sort. So you're absolutely right. The big question is, what can most cost effectively go to the cloud, and what needs to be on-premise either for cost reasons or for security reasons? And it's interesting to me that when I talk to people, the security argument isn't the dominant one anymore. People have come around to the notion that a cloud provider can be, not necessarily is, but can be just as secure as on-premise storage. It's really coming down to a question of cost and performance for particular applications. The 45Drive guys were talking about the need for enterprise quality drives when you're talking about OLTP or high write frequency applications. Those are the same applications where latency over commodity internet or even lease lines can play with performance. So there are all kinds of things that go into these calculations. It's more complicated than everyone thought it would be 5 years ago, but it does make room for people coming into the market who are able to offer solid products for each location within a hybrid architecture.
Brett, I want to give you the last word here because unfortunately we have run up. I know it's always strange when we get to the end of our hour. People are saying, well, what were we talking about? How did it go so quickly? And it's because you've been giving us some great knowledge about drives, about storage in the data center. If you had, as Curtis said, those inquisitive companies coming to you, trying to answer these questions about storage, if you have, like Oliver mentioned, those companies coming to you talking about whether or not they want something on premise or in cloud, what's the advice that you would want to give them? if they're considering a 45Drives chassis, if they're starting to look at their different storage options, what would you say are the things that they need to keep in mind most often?
I don't know.
You don't have to make something up. It's really okay. I mean, there's a reason why I asked for a technical person.
Honestly, my experience mainly is just building the hardware behind this. I can't answer too much what you I don't have a...
Okay, you know what?
Make something up and sound like an idiot.
Brett, forget my answer. My question. Forget that. Just tell me, what would you like our audience to know about you, your work at 45Drives, and your company?
We are a innovative company up here in Sydney, Nova Scotia, all the way on the other side of the world from you guys. And we're working hard to build our product. We're big on making a community. We want you to talk to us. And we want to give people the option that if you don't want to go to the cloud, like you mentioned earlier, if you want to build your own network, we're here for you. We'll do anything for you. We'll bend over backwards. We're here to service the community, and the only way we know how to do that is give you a good product.
Fantastic. Again, that's Brett Kelly, R&D engineer for 45Drives. Again, we want to thank your company for making you available. I know they wanted to give us a PR person, but I think our audience really does respond to people who are just passionate about the hardware, passionate about the software, passionate about what they do. Again, Brett Kelly, could you tell them where they can find out more about your company? Where should they go to find out about 45Drives?
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, all the old social medias there. Any questions at all, any inquiries at all, info@45Drives. And if you want a question from me directly, just go ahead and ask. If you want to ask about pricing or anything at all, you want to ask us how our day is going, send us an email at info@45Drives. We're here for you.
Just find out what the weather's like in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you might have to email twice a day because it changes.
Brett Kelly, again, thank you for being on This Week in Enterprise Tech.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And of course, we want to thank our panelists, our co-hosts, most especially Oliver RIST. Oliver, thank you for taking the time. We had some issues with your connection, and it's been a while since you've been on the show. We're going to get you settled in because we want to work you back into the rotation now that you're at PC Mag. Could you please tell the folks where you are, what you're working on, what they can expect to see from you in the future, and maybe where they can find out where to contact you?
So I am currently at the PC Magazine offices in not so sunny New York City, but which is yesterday was very sweaty New York City, but has cleared up nicely. So yeah, I don't have all the rain anymore that I used to. So I'm actually going to be in a better mood. What I'm working on is the PC Magazine business section, which they've had a tab up there for a while, and it's not going to change right away. But we are ramping up in a big way. I'm talking. We'll be ramping our reviews ecosystem from 0 into the 600 range, in a very short amount of time. So I'm not going to get a lot of sleep, but there'll be a lot of technical reviews. There'll be a lot of ancillary features. And anybody has any ideas they want to share, things you might want us to look at. We are still working on how we're going to shape this section. We haven't really decided on a flavor. So this is the time to throw ideas out if you want to see something from that you're not seeing anywhere else. And you can reach me at Oliver_RIST, R-I-S as in Sam, T as in Tom, at ziffdavis, ziffdavis.com. That'll be my email.
It's Oliver RIST from PC Mag. We'll see you again. And
Thanks.
of course, my good friend, my co-host for almost 150 episodes. I think you've missed maybe 10 out of the 150, which, by the way, we just passed our 3-year anniversary of This Week in Enterprise Tech, which is awesome because I was just hoping for 10 episodes, and this is way beyond anything I ever expected. But Curtis Franklin from Information Week Radio, always a pleasure. Where can people find you? Where can people find your show?
Well, people can find all about what we're doing, of course, at informationweek.com. Now, next week, we've got something special happening. We've got the return of Interop Radio starting Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Got a great show on management with my good friend George Colombo, interviewing General John Mitchell. He's a retired Air Force Brigadier General who's got some interesting thoughts on managing the technical world. Would love it if people would take a listen to that. In addition, I'm going to be writing a series of articles looking at the companies, people, and projects who made the Information Week Elite 100 earlier this year. All kinds of fascinating stories about what people are doing to make the lives of their employees and customers a little bit better. That will be starting next week and probably be going out about one article per week for the rest of the year. Again, everything happens at informationweek.com, or you can follow me on the Twitter handle down below.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Curtis Franklin. And of course, thanks to you, the person who watches, who downloads, who listens to every episode of This Week in Enterprise Tech. We wouldn't have a show without you. And we want to make it easier for you to get all the enterprise goodness that you want each and every single week. Just go to our show page at twit.tv/Twyat. There you'll find a little drop-down menu where you can subscribe to get the version of the show that you want into the device of choice. If you want it in your iPhone, your Android tablet or phone, your laptop, desktop, PC, whatever it's going to be, just go to twit.tv/Twyat and you'll find it. Also, don't forget that we do this show every Friday at about 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. Just go to live.twit.tv. You can see the pre-show, the post-show, and everything in between. And of course, as long as you're watching live, why not jump into our live chat room at irc.twit.tv, where you'll be able to chat with me during the show. I call you out. I've got you on a screen right down there. If you've got questions for our guests or for our experts or for our hosts, it's a part of the experiment that is Twit TV. Finally, thanks to everyone here in the studio who makes this show possible, to Carson, my super producer, and to my TD who, well, he's not my original TD, but he is the TD that I got so much bro love for. Of course, it's Mr. Brian Burnett, Cranky Hippo. Brian, you don't normally do Twyat, only on the days that you're lucky.
No,
but,
no. I used to do Twyat.
You used to do Twyat.
Used to do Coding 101 with you, too.
And then you got too big for us, which, by the way, thank you for that. That makes me feel really good.
I'm not the TD you wanted, but I'm the TD you deserve, Padre.
All right, fantastic. So now he's Batman. So Batman, could you tell the folks where they can find you on the Twit TV network?
Well, they can find me doing Know-How with you, and all this talk about do-it-yourself storage systems makes me wonder, you don't have any, like, Kingston SSDs laying around or anything, do you?
I have a lot of Kingston SSDs.
Maybe we'll have to do a Know-How about something like that, you know.
Maybe we've already taped it, and it's just waiting for release.
Oh. Maybe some of those SSDs will fall off a truck, too?
Maybe that won't happen.
No. Well, yeah, you can find me doing Know-How with you on Thursdays, TD and the Screensavers this Saturday after a little bit of a hiatus. But if you want to keep up with me and what else we're doing behind the scenes, it's at cranky_hippo on Twitter.
Yes, and of course you can find me at PadreSJ in case you want to follow me on the tweeters.
The tweeters.
The birds. Thanks. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballecer, just reminding you that if you want to know what's going on in the Enterprise, just keep Twyat.